Hello, beautiful people of the internet. How are you doing today? My name is Jackie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be my November reading wrap-up, finally. I know it's overdue. In the month of November, I read 6 books for a total of 1,954 pages, plus an average star rating of 3.83. 33333. You get the point. So let's just, get right to it and dive in with book number 1. The first book I read was The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman, the second Thursday Murder Club mystery. At first, I wasn't sure what to rate this. I was like, should I give it a 4? Should I give it a 5? And I decided, what the heck, let's just give it a 5-star. I decided I don't give enough 5 stars, and these books are definitely books that I would recommend to a lot of people, so because of that, I think this one deserves the 5-star rating. And I never give anything 5 stars, so I'm trying to be less picky. This group follows the Thursday Murder Club, a group of pensioners living in a British retirement village who gather together every Thursday to talk about unsolved crime cases. In the first book, they ended up solving a murder that happened at their retirement village, much to the police's at times annoyance and at times amusement. And in this book, the gang is back at it again to solve another case. A man from Elizabeth's past shows up at the retirement home and tells her that there are people out to get him who are trying to kill him. So Elizabeth starts looking into what is going on with this man from her past. We found out in book 1 that seemingly Elizabeth had a past with British intelligence, and that really comes into play with this book. There is, a little bit of like a spy angle going on, and just like the first book, this book was a lot of fun. The characters are very charming. I love all of the members of the Thursday Murder Club, plus their relationships with the local detectives, Chris and Donna. These books are just so charming, and even though people get murdered in them, they are a lot of fun to read. Now, like I said, was torn between should I give this book 4 or 5 stars, because I will confess not pretty much, every reveal in this book, I knew it was going to go that way. I saw it coming. However, I don't think in this case that makes the book bad, because in my opinion, there is a big difference between predicting every reveal and saying at the end, wow, that was obvious, and seeing every reveal coming but being like, that was really clever. And in this case, I think it was clever, because even though I predicted everything that was going to happen, I can see why a lot of people wouldn't predict it. And I think the thing with me is, I am an aspiring mystery novelist. I want to write murder mysteries as my career. And so I think when I read books now, I am analyzing them and thinking about their techniques. So I kind of have this level of like meta awareness that somebody who doesn't write mysteries wouldn't have. So I definitely recognized like where this book was going. I knew what Richard Osman was going to do next in terms of the mystery, but I appreciated what he was doing. I wasn't thinking to myself like, oh my God, this is so easy. I think everything was very well plotted and cleverly done. So even though I guessed everything, I wasn't mad at the end. I think this mystery is very well constructed. Ultimately, this book was great fun, and will I read the next book in the series? Of course. Next, I read The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I have been meaning to read this book for so long, and I'm glad that I finally got to it. I gave it 4 stars. This is a historical fiction book that is told in 3 perspectives and 2 timelines. In the 1700s, we follow an apothecary named Nella, who sells poisons to women who want to kill abusive or tyrannical men. A young girl called Eliza comes to Nella's shop looking for a poison to use on her mistress's husband, and Nella ends up taking Eliza under her wing. In the present day, we also follow Caroline. Now, Caroline was supposed to be coming to London with her husband for an anniversary trip. However, she just found out that her husband was cheating on her. She has thus come to London alone, and while exploring the Thames, she discovers an old bottle from centuries earlier. This discovery reawakens Caroline's love of history that has lay dormant for so long since she gave up her career aspirations to marry her husband. The Georgian time frame and the modern day time frame are coming together as Caroline finds herself investigating the so-called apothecary murders that took place hundreds of years earlier. Now, I did really enjoy this book overall. I know people who didn't like the book, their complaint was that they didn't really care for the modern day timeline in many cases, and I definitely preferred the Georgian timeline, but I didn't mind the modern one like some people did, so that didn't bother me too much. I think the plot was really interesting. I love this idea of a woman selling poisons to other women to get rid of abusive men who society's rules can't touch. I love that concept, and there were moments in this book that were really surprising to me. I think my biggest issue with it was like a particular aspect of the ending. This very surprising moment happens, at least it was very surprising in my opinion, where I was like sitting up in bed being like, oh my god, I can't believe that just happened. And then Sarah Penner kind of undoes that moment with, I don't know if I can say paranormal means, but she kind of does something really surprising and then sort of takes it back in a way that doesn't make sense according to like the laws of nature as we know them. I know that's very vague, but I kind of wish she hadn't done that because in my opinion, it dulled the impact of that extremely stunning, shocking moment. And I wish she'd, just left well enough alone instead of adding that aspect in there. Overall, I liked this book. Glad I finally read it. Will read from the author again. Next, I read A Stranger in Mayfair, one of the Charles Lennox mysteries by Charles Finch. This is part of a series set in Victorian London following Charles Lennox, who is a sort of gentleman sleuth. When we see Charles again at the beginning of this book, he has given up detection for a career in Parliament and recently married his longtime love, Lady Jane. However, acquaintances of his contact Charles because a member of their household staff has just been murdered. Though Charles is trying to focus on his new marriage and political career, the promise of a mystery just proves too enticing for him to resist. This was, again, a 4-star for me. What I like about the Charles Lennox mysteries is they're all very easy to read. I'm engaged while I'm reading them, and I can just breeze through them, honestly. I think I don't really have anything negative about this book to say other than, it didn't quite pack enough of a punch to be an all-time favorite. I don't think it's going to be one of the most memorable historical mysteries I've ever read. But, if you're looking for a fun book to read and pass the time, like, these books do deliver every time. They're not among the, like, upper echelon of my all-time favorite books, but they always serve their purpose, and you know, that's good enough for me. Next, I read The Mystery of the Blue Train by Agatha Christie. I gave this 3 stars. I have an entire video where I try to solve this mystery, which I will link in the card if you want to go watch it. I always have a lot of fun trying to solve Agatha Christie's books. This is one of the Poirot mysteries, and as the title suggests, the murder takes place on the Blue Train. This is a train headed off to Nice and the French Riviera. An heiress named Ruth Kettering is murdered on the train and her very expensive rubies stolen. So who was it that killed her? Was it her American millionaire father, her estranged husband, her lover, who is a bit of a swindler? Lots of different suspects, and of course, what happened to the rubies? This is considered to be one of Agatha Christie's worst books. I believe she herself said she thought it was the worst book she ever wrote. I believe Agatha Christie wrote this around the time that she was about to be divorced from her husband. Her first husband, Archie Christie, cheated on her, ending their marriage, and this was around the time that Agatha Christie famously disappeared. That's a very interesting story if you don't know it, but we don't have time to go into that in this video. So needless to say, she was going through a lot of stuff at the time that she was writing this, and that's why she didn't consider it her best work, and a lot of people also don't consider it her best work. However, you know, this was a 3-star book. I didn't think it was actively bad, but it wasn't as good as other things that Agatha Christie has written. At the end of this year, I am going to be talking about all of the books that I read for Read Christie 2023, and I will do an updated Agatha Christie ranking where I will be putting in this book and the others that I've read since I made that ranking video. This one will definitely be towards the bottom, but I didn't think it was actively bad. I think, you know, it was entertaining enough. I think there were some good characters. I liked Catherine Gray a lot. She sort of fits that Christie archetype of the, like, you know, plucky and intelligent woman. And she sort of becomes like a... what's the word that I want? You know, Poirot doesn't have Hastings in this book, and so she sort of becomes the Hastings where Poirot will talk to her about the case and she kind of becomes his ally in solving it, which I liked. The beginning of this book, though, was boring. I felt like it took a while to get to the main mystery, and I was ready to pick up the pace a little bit by the time we finally got to it. I also guessed whodunit fairly easily. Spoiler alert for that trying to solve video, but I was on to the person who killed Ruth from very early on in the book, so I wasn't necessarily surprised, but I didn't think the book was bad either. It was good, it was entertaining enough, but it's not going to become an all-time favorite Agatha Christie for me. Not actively bad, but not as good as her other books. Next, I feel like some people are gonna be mad about this, but I finally read Cecily by Annie Garthwaite, a book that I had high hopes for, and I've been anticipating for a long time, and I ended up giving it a 3. Not a bad book, but it was disappointing, and granted, that might partially be my fault because I went in with very high hopes, but this just didn't fully hit the mark for me. This book is pitched as a feminist historical fiction following Cecily Neville, the Duchess of York. She was a very famous figure during the Wars of the Roses and the mother of 2 English kings, Edward IV and Richard III. Now, I think one of my biggest issues with this book is calling it a feminist book. Oh, my bookmark is still in here. Let's take that out. There it is. We'll put that back where it belongs. To me, I had a little bit of an issue with calling this a feminist book because to me, a huge part of feminism is supporting and advocating for other women, and I don't think that was a part of this book. I don't really know if there was any other woman that Cecily actually liked other than maybe her maid, Annette, and her daughters sometimes, but she shows blatant favoritism to her sons over her daughters. Edward is clearly her golden child, her favorite child, and like it's not even a secret. There was a comment in the book that really rubbed me the wrong way where when Edward's just a baby, she thinks to herself that it's so hard for her to hand Edward over to his nurse, but it's so much easier for her to hand her daughter Anne over. And I was like, oh great, I'm sure that girl is gonna grow up to feel so loved when you're just thinking about like how her little brother means so much more to you. But anyways, that's a tangent. And really, just like every other woman in this book, Cecily actively dislikes, so there really isn't that like women supporting women aspect that's really important to me in feminism. And yeah, granted, a lot of these other prominent women in this period were people who Cecily did have conflict with, but you know, it still rubbed me the wrong way to see her show this blatant favoritism towards her sons over her daughters, or to Edward in particular, because she also makes a comment when the future Richard III is young that she doesn't really understand why he's so special to his father. So it's very clear who her favorite child is. There were other comments that rubbed me the wrong way, like after she's given birth, it talks about how she's not eating so that she can be skinnier faster. Her and her husband, Richard, Duke of York, refer to one character as just like so-and-so's fat wife, which is really rude and judgmental. And granted, maybe you're gonna say, Jackie, this is you being too sensitive. And you know, like I am a sensitive person, so whatever, but you know, it was comments like this that gave me a poor taste in my mouth for the heroes, because these comments were just unnecessary and didn't need to be in the book. Now, of course, there were things I liked about their characters too. I like that Cecily is very ambitious and intelligent. You know, she has a plan for the betterment of her family and she's sticking to it. I really liked seeing her political acumen. That's something that I do really like in female characters in historical or fantasy fiction. I also really liked that Cecily and her husband, Richard, Duke of York, had a very loving relationship. There are times when they fight or they have conflict, of course, but at the end of the day, they have a very strong, loving, devoted marriage in this book, and that was something that I really loved to see, because unfortunately, too often when you read these medieval historical fiction books, you have a woman who's forced into a marriage she doesn't want, and she doesn't love her husband. So it was a refreshing change to see two people who are actually genuinely devoted to one another. This book is also really well written on a line level. Clearly, Annie Garthwaite is a good writer, but it was hard for me to give this book a higher rating because of so many comments and throwaway lines throughout the book that just really rubbed me personally the wrong way and left a bad taste in my mouth for the main characters. I also personally feel like this book ends at a point where I'm like, you can't just end there. I want to see what's going to happen next. You know, I would have liked to see Cecily's reaction to Edward, her favorite child, becoming the king. And what would her opinions have been about Richard III when he started to grow up? I feel like the book just ends at a moment where I really wanted to read more. And so it was disappointing that it was just over when things were really starting to get good. So yeah, I feel like maybe this is partially my fault because I went in with high expectations, and maybe that's why I was so disappointed, since I was fully expecting to love this and give it 5 stars. I'm sorry, don't hate me, don't come at me with pitchforks, just my personal opinion. I really wanted to love this and I did not. Finally, I read The Curse of Penryth Hall by Jess Armstrong. I had an arc of this. Thank you so much to Minotaur Books for giving me my copy in exchange for an honest review. I gave this book 4 stars, and I do have a separate review video, so I will try to be brief here. Go watch that video for more detailed thoughts. This is a sort of gothic historical mystery taking place after World War I and set in Cornwall. I really loved the Cornish setting. It was one of my favorite things about this book. Our main character, Ruby, is an heiress turned bookseller who is asked to travel to this village in Cornwall to deliver some books for her employer. It turns out that her former best friend, Tamsin, also lives in this area at the estate Penryth Hall, owned by Tamsin's husband, Sir Edward Chenoweth. Ruby sees Tamsin for the first time in years, and while Ruby is staying at Penryth Hall for the night, Sir Edward turns up dead. The locals believe that he is the next victim in a curse that has haunted the Chenoweth family, but Ruby is not so sure. Was this actually a curse, or is something other than superstition to blame for Sir Edward's violent death? I loved the setting of this and learning a little more about Cornish myths and beliefs. I was also thoroughly entertained by the book overall, and I did enjoy it. I liked the characters, specifically some of the side characters, really worked for me. My biggest complaint is I think the character of Tamsin wasn't as intriguing to me as the others, and I didn't fully understand the depth of her relationship with Ruby. I wish that had come across a little bit more, but it was a 4-star book and one I would recommend to people. So that is it for my November reading wrap-up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section what you read in the month of November. Did you read any of the books that I did? I would love to hear from you. If you're still here watching, but you don't know what to comment, since I'm wearing a "why run when you can guac" shirt, maybe you can leave an avocado emoji in the comment section. If you don't feel too silly doing that, leave an avocado to let me know you're still here. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed, and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more from me. I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. My social media links are down below if you want to follow me on Tumblr, Instagram, or be my friend on Goodreads. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a thrilling rest of your day. Bye, and I'll see you next time.